The guides stress moving into what they call true knowing and divine mind. And those are two other ideas. True knowing, which is the God within, or the aspect of you that knows. They say every time you've ever known anything truly known, you've never been afraid, because true knowing is the God within. And there's no fear in that. And thinking is a different thing. So the guides encourage people to move towards clear cognizance. And the good news about that is you're not looking outside yourself. I think it's actually, of the clairs, the one that I'm the most valuable. And some of the wisest people I know are in their knowing. They don't think of themselves as psychic at all. They just know. What they say is, we're in coherence, energetic coherence, and accord with manifestation, with everything that we see and experience. So we're in alignment to this world, and we're contributing to this world by how we hold things in consciousness. And the guides say very simply, and it's a simple teaching: what you damn damns you back. What you put in darkness, who you put in darkness, calls you to the darkness. And there's a whole lot that we put in darkness, in which they say what that really is just the denial of what they call the inherent divine. They say the only real problem humanity has is what they call the refuting or the denial of source. And that's not a religious teaching. That means God is the sky, God is the tree, the source of all things that's expressing in manifestation. So I think people get off on this thing that manifestation is about getting something. I'm supposed to manifest this, manifest that. And most of what I understand we're asking for is what we think we're supposed to have. And that's born in a common field that was sort of moored in a sense of separation to begin with. If you know the source of all things, you can become receptive to it. And it's not as much about demanding, it's about becoming receptive to what is already present, which is, they would say, I think, the inherent divine.
Would you call the upper room, could you equate that to what French philosopher Henri Corbin called the imaginal realm?
They talk about it as Christ consciousness. That's the level of vibration. They say the upper room is the highest you can hold while maintaining a form. But they also talk about the upper room as a level of entry. And this is the easiest way, I think, to understand it. They say that the common field, or the reality that we know ourselves in, is operating as an octave of tone, high and low, in a scale. And they say the upper room is already present, and it's the octave above the common field that we've known, and the aspect of us that already resides there is what they call the monad, or the Christ, or the divine spark, or the divine self. That part of you or me and everybody is already present there. And their work is actually supporting our alignment through the completeness of our being to that level of vibration and tone. So I like to think of it as the octave up, and they say that in some of their work, they often describe it as transposition. They're transposing the music that we are to play in what they call the higher octave. What they say is the shadow of what was, whereas what is actually happening now is a really rapid change. And so we're having to assimilate this. The guide said in the very first book they dictated through me, which was in 2009, they said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And everything that's been created in fear is going to have to be reknown or reclaimed in a higher way. I don't think a lot of that stuff happens until we are in an encounter with it. We're responsible for what we create, which includes, how we treat each other and ourselves and the planet.
Is it too late?
I think, no, not in general. But again, the other thing to remember is, as Bashar says, you never really change the version of Earth you're on. You change yourself, and you actually shift to another version of Earth, another parallel version that is now more representative of the change you've made within yourself. So other people may still experience the more destructive version of Earth. You won't necessarily experience that. And the people that want to shift or navigate themselves to more positive versions of Earth will ultimately experience that. But that doesn't mean that the version you used to be on has gone away. Many people may still experience the more destructive version if they're making those kinds of negative choices. So it's not about changing the world you're on, it's about changing yourself and being a living example of what that can create for your reality, because your reality is already the product of shifting to parallel versions of Earth many billions of times per second. We think, as Bashar explains, that we have a single linear timeline, and he's saying you don't. What you experience as a single linear timeline is actually the product of shifting through billions of parallel versions of Earth every single second.
Every
So
single second.
this is a very kind of heady, multidimensional explanation that sometimes can be a little bit challenging to wrap your mind around. But he's explaining this as if it really is the way physics works. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to experience the versions of Earth that we would prefer to, and at the same time allow those people who are making more negative choices to also continue to experience the versions of Earth that they're basically creating for themselves as well. As we expand our consciousness, our senses become more sensitive to what's going on, since we're creating, in a sense, time and space anyway. It's a product and a projection of our consciousness. So while I'm not saying every single incident like this is the product of that, sometimes we can just, make mistakes and have psychological issues that can present certain experiences to us. On the other hand, I do think some perceptions of alternate parallel realities that people refer to as the Mandela effect, alternate histories that people remember differently, I think are actually representative of us becoming aware of parallel realities, where the history in one reality used to be one way and the history in another reality is another way. And we remember both of them, or we can experience different people having different memories of different histories. Because as Bashar says, when you change yourself sufficiently in the present, you actually change your past as well. Because the linear explanation for that is, well, if you really have become a completely different person in the present, then linearly speaking, in order to justify that difference, if it's radical enough, you have to have had a completely different past that gave you the reason why you're such a different person in the present. And therefore, you're actually changing your past as you change yourself in the present to make sense out of it from a linear space-time perspective. And so sometimes, because our senses are expanding, different people may in fact hold on to what the past used to be for who they used to be, but also simultaneously become aware of what the new past is for who the new person they are now is, and make sense to who they are now. And so some of that, again, not in every case, but some of that may be representative of the expansion of our consciousness and the realization that multiple parallel realities and multiple histories coexist simultaneously with one another. And that now we can experience that bleed through. And we sometimes experience that as different phenomenology anyway, such as things like deja vu, where we may be tapping into parallel realities where that incident may have already happened in that reality.
Sure.
But it hasn't happened in this one yet. But our brain is tapping into, our energy is tapping into something that's already happened in one reality. And so when we catch up to it, we feel, oh, wait, this feels familiar, like it's already happened. And we know what's going to happen because it's already happened. So, we may get those bleed throughs from parallel realities to experience those phenomena as well.
Did you like what you heard? Then be sure you don't miss these episodes for more channeled wisdom for your highest journey.